Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning wherever you are. And thank you for joining today's webinar, Conversations with Global Leaders. It starts at NYUAD, hosted by your very own Alumni Association in celebration of the 10th anniversary of NYU Abu Dhabi. I am Mariët Westermann, the Vice-Chancellor of NYU Abu Dhabi, and I want to thank you all for joining us today for this special program. This session is being recorded and it will be made available on our website later in the week, as all these programs are. So our Conversations with Global Leaders series brings together panels of our incredible alumni who enact the mission of NYU Abu Dhabi in their lives across the globe. We are honored to have them with us today in this virtual space to discuss their journeys through and post NYUAD. Today's session features 4 amazing former students coming to us from 3 different countries who are notable for having a strong entrepreneurial streak and living that out in the world today. Before we meet each of them, I would like to mention Start AD, which may be well known to you. Start AD is really a resource for entrepreneurs housed at NYUAD, entrepreneurs who come through our own university, but also who are in the community and in the global community, in fact. Start AD is a key resource on campus to support the NYUAD community in advancing their entrepreneurial ambitions, developing their skills, and supporting their young ventures, led by Ramesh Jagannathan, our professor of engineering. Start AD develops customized and impact-driven programs with stakeholders of many kinds, including the UAE government itself and other governments, corporations, startups, investors, and innovation entities, furthering UAE's transition into a knowledge-based economy. Over 60 NYUAD student entrepreneurs, 12 research projects, and hundreds of community members have benefited from their programs. So to know more about Start AD or find out how to work with this amazing team, which you can do even if you've graduated, please visit startad.ae. But now let's meet our panelists. I will call on them and they will each briefly introduce themselves. Let's start with Mohammed Belarbi. Mohammed, please join us on camera and audio and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Mariët, for the kind introduction. My name is Mohammed. I'm from Morocco, graduated back in 2016. And I launched my first company actually in my last year of university in the cybersecurity space called Online. We've been operating for over 5 years now. And we were fortunate enough to have or to leave a mark in the UAE on the MENA market when it comes to cybersecurity. I think as I remember, like our crowning prize was being featured on the cover of Forbes Middle East. And I remember Al Bloom was also featured on the cover of Forbes Middle East. So I thought, that was a nice representation of NYUAD in the region.
Amazing. Well, welcome back. Next, we'll hear from Olya Karpova. Oh, Mohammed, you can stay with us. We like seeing everybody.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the introduction. My name is Olya Karpova, as you mentioned. I'm currently based in Dubai, but originally I'm from Russia. I graduated from NYUAD in 2015, almost 6 years ago now. I majored in visual arts, and after graduation, I worked in social media. I freelanced as a content and visual strategist. But recently I became really passionate about conscious living, which led me to establishing my own company, formed by Olya, which focuses on bringing sustainability into art and home decor areas. That's me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much and welcome back, Olya. Let's hear now from Dora Palfi.
Hi everyone, my name is Dora and I was in class of 2016. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Imagine Labs, which I co-founded with 2 other NYUAD alumni. And we're on a mission to equip and empower girls to shape the future with tech. So we have a physical product, the Magic Charm, which I always have with me, a programmable accessory that teaches Python programming to young women, specifically girls between 9 and 15. And I studied brain and cognitive sciences at NYU Abu Dhabi and had a minor in computer science. But then I ended up going down on sort of like the tech entrepreneurial path afterwards. And I guess we'll talk more about this, but I really believe that studying at NYUAD equipped me for this journey quite well.
And you won a Distinguished Alumni Award as well.
That is correct, right? Which
Tell us a little bit about that.
I just received last week, and I'm super honored, and of course, really sad that I didn't have the opportunity to receive it in person, but hopefully in the coming years.
But I'm glad it got to you at last. That's good. I'm happy to hear that. And last but certainly not least, Dmitry Trechakov.
Hi, thank you for introduction. My name is Dmitry, and I'm a member of inaugural class of 2014. I graduated from NYU Abu Dhabi with a major in economics, and afterwards I pursued a career in investment banking. And 3 or 4 years ago, I co-founded Electric Brand Consultants with a fellow classmate, Beso, who was also a member of inaugural class 2014. My company is offering services in branding originally, and now we developed into a full scope digital communications agency. And last year we won a Red Dot Award, which is like an Oscar in the design world.
I love it. An Oscar, the Red Dot. Do you get a Red Dot? What do they give you?
Well, in coronavirus, we just get a diploma via mail, but in normal times, it's like a big ceremony.
Congratulations. Yes, we must get back to big ceremonies, and that time will come. But for now, we're just so thrilled that you're here to talk with us, with and for our many alums. Starting off, let me ask a simple question of each of you. Why did you decide to start a company? And what spurred you onto your entrepreneurial journey? I think I'll start with Olya.
To be honest, I always wanted to own my own company. But after graduation, I decided to gain a little bit more experience in a more traditional world. So I freelanced. I worked at a social media marketing company as well. Of course, I wanted to, when I started being interested more about sustainability, I was thinking how I can combine art, which I was always passionate about. That's why I majored in visual art, with sustainability. And I looked at what other companies were doing, and I thought there is a gap on the market. So I wanted to bring something new, and that's how it all started.
If I can stay with you for just a minute, can you talk a little bit about how this works? How do you combine sustainability and build it into this arts and design company?
So first of all,
you can brag about your company. It's okay. You can work it.
First of all, I started with the materials because a lot of traditional artistic supplies contain lots of chemicals and later on release them to the environment and the earth and the water and everything else. So I focused on researching the right materials for my artworks, but also I wanted to make it limited edition so that people would treasure their pieces for the years to come. I treat it more like fine art rather than something that you buy and then dispose. Sorry. And then dispose, especially in the UAE where the population is mostly expert. I feel like people buy lots of home decor and then they just disregard it a couple of years later. So I wanted to change that, and that's why I started my company.
Wonderful. So are you based in Dubai?
Yes, at the moment, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, great design, burgeoning design city. That's really great. Mohammed, let's ask you the question. Why did you start a company and how did you get going on it?
In all honesty, it was pure opportunity and luck. So I remember in our last year of university, there was a hackathon. That's a yearly occurrence, the NYUAD hackathon in the Arab world. And I just happened to come across a friend who was Moroccan and was a hacker. And he kept on telling me all about, like, the cybersecurity space, how they were hacking into companies and helping them secure better against future attacks and breaches. And I thought, if these guys are able to hack into Facebook and Google and the likes, I'm sure they can do a lot of damage when it comes to the UAE. So I just asked them to look into regional companies, mostly large tech companies like Su.com, which was bought by Amazon. And literally they got access to the entire customer database. So I realized that they have a lot of value to offer to this market. And we decided to launch the company based on that. So I had never had any interest in cybersecurity in the first place. So it was pure coincidence. I thought there was a gap in the market that could be filled. And we just took a leap of faith. And I'm glad we did so.
Gaps in the market. We've heard it twice. And how is it going so far? Feeling pretty good about it? Yeah.
We're doing well. I mean, we're operating, we have clients across the world, all the way from the US to across Africa, Middle East. We service mostly public companies, like French public companies like Edenred, Moroccan public companies like OCP. We worked with the Dubai government, the Ras Al Khaimah government. We work with RMX, you name it. So I think we've left a mark so far.
That's wonderful to hear. Are you based in Dubai also?
Yes, I'm based in Dubai as well.
Yeah. Dimitri, I don't think you're in Dubai, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I'm not in Dubai. I'm in Moscow. I was
You're
just saying
Moscow.
we were having a record freezing temperature of -25 Celsius today.
Wow, I'm so sorry. I won't tell you what it is here in
I know.
Abu Dhabi. Come back and see us soon when you can. But Dimitri, tell us about your company and why you started it.
So I've heard from Ola and Mohammed that they felt an absence in the market. This is completely opposite from my company. I work in a market which is very competitive, and there are many competitors who are doing what's similar to what we are doing and have been in the market for a while. But nevertheless, 4 years ago, my classmate Beso and I, we have decided to start a company because we wanted to bring best international practice to Russian market. And our competences and our strong sides were to be combined to build a successful business which were going to grow and scale.
Yeah, the other approach is just doing better, I guess, at the competition. And how's that going so far? Have you made inroads in that busy field?
I think so. I think we are establishing our place in this market and finding the right niche. We have started as a small agency which originally offered services in just branding and PR, which are two very competitive services. I'm sure it's the same everywhere. But later on, we have found our strong sides in web design and digital. Now we do websites, we do apps, and we even do super apps now. And that's actually something that we have started doing after coronavirus, because our business had a great our business had a great change after the coronavirus, because our services rely on public events, which were pretty much all of them were shut down. So we did a little shift during this year, and so far this shift has been quite fruitful in terms of new clients, new awards, and also new services that we offer.
That's great to hear that you were able to make the most of it during the pandemic. I think I heard you say super app. What is a super app?
Well, there is a big trend in digital. Basically, some companies which used to have multiple apps for multiple services are now making one app which will provide all kind of services that are there. So, for example, there is a big IT company in Russia, Yandex, which does taxi, car sharing, navigation, food delivery, and products delivery. And they used to have 10 separate apps for all of this. But now they combine it into super app, because from terms of performance and new clients development, this is a good business decision. So now there is a big trend of companies trying to basically create one app which will serve all sorts of needs. And that's also something that's also a service that we're offering now.
Could you say that the super app might be called Amazon?
Well,
Is
I'm
that
not
the
sure
idea,
about.
really, the full end-to-end control of all these connecting services?
Yes, I think Amazon is a good example. I'm not 100% familiar with Amazon because unfortunately it's not present in Russian market, at least yet. But yeah, I think Amazon could be a good example because companies, especially IT companies, are trying to extract value from all kind of services that they're offering to their clients, even if these services are not connected if you look at them from the first glance.
It's very interesting. Dora, what got you on your started and your partners? How did you decide to start your company?
I think for us, it was very much not like for the others, we never really planned to start a company, so to say. I remember actually Mohammed being very entrepreneurial when we were students. And for me, that was like a different world. I was preparing for a PhD, you know, completely different path. But there was a problem space that I've been really passionate about already when I was at NYU Abu Dhabi. And in fact, I have this necklace that I got from Beatrice, one of my co-founders. And this is the WeSTEM logo. So WeSTEM was the student organization that we started together to empower women in all of the STEM fields. And so the two of us, and actually Paula, who's our third co-founder, was also a member of WeSTEM. We all three have been working in this problem space. And Beatrice and I, we both ended up coming to Stockholm for our master's degrees after we graduated from NYU Abu Dhabi. And here got more involved with the startup scene. And we're still thinking about the exact same problem. How do we get more women into tech in particular? We felt like, you know, there was so much happening within the tech scene. All new startups are being started with technology to solve the problems of our future. We need more people with technical skills. And in order to solve diverse problems, we need more diverse employees and more diverse founders in tech. And so this problem was kind of like stuck with us. And then I had a research project in my master's degree, which was essentially around making a product idea together with our end users, with teenage girls. And that's how the idea came up for creating actually a more scalable solution. So as opposed to just trying to run events, which is what we mostly did with WeSTEM and with our other initiatives, create a digital solution that could reach our end users, so teenage girls, and actually create an impact in their lives without us having to be there in present. And so that's how sort of from like a non-profit approach, we went into a for-profit model with the idea that we're sort of building what's called a zebra company, which is focusing as much on impact as on financial return. And with the idea that if we're creating a financially sustainable solution, then we can really scale the impact far as well. And so we started out with this idea, and then Paula, our third co-founder, joined in a year after she graduated, and we've been building ever since.
Amazing story. And it's very interesting to hear you say, Dora, that you saw Mohammed and he was this incredible entrepreneur while at NYU Abu Dhabi. When, of course, I think actually the creation of WeSTEM was an entrepreneurial act. It's one of the really interesting things to me about student interest groups at NYU Abu Dhabi. You'll be happy to hear because I'm sure you're all involved in them. They are such a lively space of enterprise from my point of view. They really are like social entrepreneurship, leadership in action in a way that I can barely remember in my own college, although there were entrepreneurial folks around. So you were an entrepreneur even though you didn't know it, is what I would say. And WeSTEM continues to be an incredibly important and strong organization here. I meet with them from time to time. But speaking of that, so very different trajectories, very interesting. Are there some qualities or skill sets that you believe or aptitudes or appetites that you think are necessary to become a successful entrepreneur? Maybe Mohammed, since you were so entrepreneurial all along, let's hear what you think about that. Is it bred in the bone or can you acquire the skill? What do you think? What's needed to be?
Discounting the fact that luck plays a lot of role in any entrepreneurial journey, being in the right time at the right place is not like, you know, given to most people. aside also from the opportunities we were given. I mean, NYUAD was such a fostering community for us to be able to pursue those entrepreneurial ventures. That's pretty much a luxury for a lot of people when others, barely can make ends meet and don't have the luxury to go out and start new things. So those things aside, which are very important, I think, honestly, just being able to take rejection and failure and still go forward. Because I can't recount the number of times I've failed at small projects as well as big projects. Most people, they see your achievements, what you post on LinkedIn and the Forbes cover, but they don't see the 20 times you actually lost a client or the 10 other projects you tried to start and they never kicked off in the first place. And that's kind of, I think, is key, because what we're taught in school, and this is not like criticism of school in any way, is that you always need to be writing your exams. You always need to have that like A or A+ in order to make it to the next step. While in real life, at least based on my experience, what allows you to go to that next step is actually failure and rejection, because you realize what doesn't work. You realize where you've actually didn't meet the mark, and then you build yourself onto a better version. And that better version allows you to build a better product or a better service or a better company. And I think that was really key for me. The fact that I didn't give up and I just continued over and over again until something like stuck. You throw everything at the wall and see what would stick. I think that at least that was my perception of things.
I think it's really great what you said about grades. They don't matter so much as soon as you walk out the door of this campus. I mean, in some applications it does, but for jobs and entrepreneurship, not really. It's a very good point. Dimitri, the very early years, what do you think about talents, skills, aptitudes, and so forth that you need to be a successful entrepreneur?
I think going back to your question, whether this is something you're born with or whether this is something that you develop throughout your life, I think it's rather the latter. I think one of the most important skills for an entrepreneur, and I mean, I know there are many somewhat cliche things like think outside the box and be able to take risks. I think really the most important thing for an entrepreneur is to be able to see every action that you take as a test and a hypothesis. And once you think about everything that you do as a hypothesis that you are testing, you start thinking different about your failures, because every time you fail, it's not a failure anymore. It's a hypothesis that didn't work out. And every time when you don't fail and when you don't succeed is a hypothesis that that you have proved to be right. And once you start thinking about this as a way of testing different business hypotheses, and I think that applies not only to business, but in all other areas of life. When you start thinking about everything you really do as testing hypothesis, you start thinking differently about how you allocate your resources to things and about the outcome that you receive, whether good or bad outcome.
What a wonderful analogy, the scientific method. I have to admit, I never thought of NYU Abu Dhabi as a hypothesis, but now that you say it, I'm going to think a little bit differently about this experiment we've been running here successfully with a few failures, to be sure, but mostly very successfully for a few years. Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. Olya, what would you say?
It's really hard to add, because I also thought that probably resilience is the quality that you do have to develop in yourself, because I don't think we're born with it. Very few people are born or raised to be resilient. And yeah, facing failures, but I also thought maybe having this kind of make it happen attitude, because we'll all have problems in life and business, but just focusing on the solutions to different problems is probably the best thing, because we always dwell on something bad that happens to us, oh, how could it happen to me, what I'm going to do. But if we focus, okay, like on solutions, I could do this or that, and make a plan on how you can overcome this particular difficulty, I think that could be a good quality to develop in yourself. And you could definitely develop and work on it throughout your whole life, I think.
Yeah, I think the growth mindset is what you're speaking to. And that has a lot to do with what several of you have already said about being able to accept a failure and examine it. I mean, it will always be painful, a failure. It's no fun, you know, failing forward is not really fun, but there is a truth in that, and seeing that growth opportunity. Dora, a lot of things have been said. Do you want to add anything?
Actually, just the one thing that you mentioned, growth mindset, because that's what I was going to say. The one of the most impactful books I read right before I started Imagine Labs was Grit, and that whole concept is around this like extreme open mindset, and so it's really I'm a really big believer of that. So I would really just add to that, like you need sort of like persistence and just believing that you can improve, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to make it work, and not your skills or things that you were born with.
I'm very interested in these concepts as an educator and as a parent and as someone who watches talent develop. A growth mindset, believing in that you can actually work to improve things, and that you're not born and stuck just because of this body you were born into. I think it's a very important idea, but then people need to be given opportunity. I think Mohammed said something very important about setting aside the fact that luck, investment in you by others before you even begin these are important qualities. Since I wanted to ask you, and since you've already said you liked the book Grit, which was very good, Dora, I wanted to ask each of you actually, we always hope that we promote lifelong learning here, that you're not done when you get out of NYU Abu Dhabi, whether you go on to graduate school or not, that you continue to learn and grow. Is there any, how do you engage in lifelong learning? Do you take courses, or is there even a specific book or podcast or YouTube channel that you can, that has helped you evolve as an entrepreneur, specifically as an entrepreneur in your work? If somebody, I won't call on you directly because you may not be ready to answer the question, but if someone wants to raise their hand and say something, Dory has something else to recommend, I think.
Yes, or I really love this topic, and I can also bring in as a fun fact, I did drop out of my master's degree, not because I didn't want to continue learning, but because I felt like I was learning so much more and so much faster working with Imagine Labs. And so I think the concept of learning has stayed extremely important for me, but as opposed to sort of like learning for the reason of gaining knowledge, I'm much more learning and applying in quicker cycles, I would say. But that being said, like along the lines of reading Grit, I also read more books on just like knowledge and ideas, and Range was one of my most recent favorite books, which kind of goes against the idea of Grit, but also goes with it. Also listen to a lot
again, it's called Range. I don't
Range.
think
With the idea of how a range of experiences and actually trying a lot of things, and also giving up certain things is very natural part of your life, and you have to find like that right match that you will actually want to stick with. And I think NYU Abu Dhabi was excellent at that, providing a range of opportunities, different things to try out, and then finding what you are truly passionate about. And of course, I also listen to a lot of podcasts about entrepreneurship, but I think for me, the most important thing since I started out with the entrepreneurial journey has been just learning from other entrepreneurs and just asking questions from experts, and not being afraid to do that. And that has been one of the best part of it, that when you have a specific question and you're working on a big problem, like really busy people are willing to give their time to you and help out with that. But yes, so definitely would say that learning has been a continuous part of my life.
It's excellent, and of course your company is an educational company, so you're very committed to it. Oh yeah, but are there some things that you found really valuable as a learner?
Yes, I had to learn a lot actually, because I took some marketing courses, but mostly my career at NYU Abu Dhabi was focused around arts and psychology because I was really into psychology as well. But I had to learn a lot about just general like technical things about marketing, about social media marketing, which is super relevant these days, e-commerce. Mostly I took short courses in various places online. But I also really love different podcasts. I would recommend How to Fail by Elizabeth Day. It's a really good podcast. She invites great leaders and they talk about their business journeys or careers and how failures help them to actually grow, something that we discussed already. Yeah, mostly as Dora said, that it's really inspirational and helpful just to talk to people in different industries, because obviously if, for example, you're doing something completely new like I did, it was really hard for me to even do market research because there was no product that was comparable to what I wanted to do. But I still tried to talk to the entrepreneurs that I knew from our community of NYUAD or people who I met even online and ask them questions, and don't be afraid of, to just talk to people.
Don't be afraid. Mohammed, any time to read and learn while you're not working on your company?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like one trick for me that I use to force myself to learn is sometimes to commit to deliver training sessions or seminars on a certain topic. And then I know that like I have to learn, otherwise I look like a fool in these sessions. So I was glad to work, for example, multiple times with Start AD delivering, multiple sessions on, like the lean startup model or, the business model canvas with other universities, such as Abu Dhabi University and others. And I think this is very important because sometimes like there are two ways to force yourself to do something. Is either by incentivizing yourself or by kind of like building the fear of God in yourself. And I think like for me, sometimes the fear is a more compelling factor. So I don't want to come across as an idiot in a conference. So usually that's my motivation to learn about the topic, to master a topic. I like also to sometimes write about the topic because it's an easier way to distill whatever you're learning, and then put it on a LinkedIn post. It's pretty much after going through, like a couple of books and a couple of presentations, you're able to take the key points and present them to the public. And I think that distillation process is very important because that's really where the learning comes from. Because if you're able to tell something so complex in a couple of sentences, then you've actually mastered that topic. And I think that's very useful. Besides, obviously, as you all mentioned, like speaking to others is very important because however, we like to think that we are smart and competent, we're always, never going to be experts in all the fields. We always have our niche, and then anything besides that or outside of that, we have to rely on others' counsel and advice. And I like to network because of that. I'd like to ask people about like design. I like to ask people about like, legal aspects of raising funds. All of these things makes you a better person because you're able to have a conversation or an educated conversation whenever you meet in other counterparties, be it an investor, be it like a company I'm hiring to do our development, or be it a client I'm trying to pitch.
Yeah. Dimitri, I want to ask you the same question. Is there something that you recommend in this way?
Well, it's a little bit hard to add to what the guys have already mentioned, but there's one thing I found out while trying to solve different difficulties and complexities of my business is that if I'm facing a trouble or a difficulty with business, it means that someone else has already faced this business difficulty and probably wrote an article or did a podcast or did a YouTube video about it. So it's just incredible how much information, how many answers to your questions there are online. If there is a difficulty that you're facing, there's definitely a guy who already did a podcast on it. I 100% guarantee you that. So I think the core about being a lifelong learner is being able to ask the right questions and try to find them, because there's so much information available nowadays online on literally anything, as long as you just ask this question.
Well, you've just together, you're these incredible NYU Abu Dhabi students, graduates, but still students as well. You've together given just such wonderful recipes for successful teaching. And why, as Mohammed says, there's nothing like learning something than having to teach it. And that's one of the aspects I always have really enjoyed about it. And then also knowing how to ask the right questions and talking to people. Uh, I really, it's a wonderful compilation of answers, absolutely very instructive and helpful to anyone who's listening, I would say. Since Dimitri, you mentioned, whenever you hit kind of a little obstacle or a challenge and you don't really know how to do it, which was definitely my condition trying to figure out what Abu Dhabi was going to be. I woke up so often thinking, all right, here are 3 things on the to-do list, none of which I was trained to do or I have any idea how to start to do. And then you talk and you find out and so forth. Tell me a little bit. Obviously, starting your own company is never an easy path. It's really hard work. You have to be super creative. Can you describe 1 or 2 of these challenges you faced and how you managed them?
I think I have 2 challenges. First one is being able to find your own niche. And second one is human resources, absolutely. So speaking about being able to find your own niche, there is a phrase that I love, which says, riches are in the niches. And I 100% agree with this phrase. You have to know what exactly you're good at and offer only those services and try not to do anything that you are okay at or not okay at, absolutely. So I think the first obstacle is trying to find your niche and more importantly, sticking with it when times are hard, but also trying to adapt it when there is a market need, especially that's something that we have noticed during the coronavirus. And as for the second difficulty is human resources. I think trying to build a right team of people who are going to support you, hiring people, having employees who are working for you and in some ways rely on you and in some ways you rely on them. I think that's also something that cannot be really taught in college and can only come with experience.
The team is everything. It's really true. And it will stay hard throughout your life, actually always you won't always get it right. Fit evolves too. So how many people do work for your company now?
It's 20 people.
Yeah, that's a significant group of people to motivate and to, yeah, very interesting. Let's see. Olya, what is you're starting your company, you really pivoted obviously to a new idea. What's sort of one of the biggest challenges you faced and how did you deal with it?
For me, it was probably related to sustainability because unfortunately it is still not widely discussed topic around the world. There are issues that are being more discussed at the moment, but I feel like every time people talk about this sustainability, they just bring all these scary facts and people just say, oh, I can't do it. I can't do anything different. It's all on government. It's all on, like bigger decision makers. So educating people on how they can make an impact on the economy by their individual decisions in purchases was the big challenge. And I think that's how I mainly try to sell my product, just trying to make a difference, make an impact on an individual level and talk to people about sustainability as something not scary, but a positive thing that we can make happen together.
It sounds like storytelling is very important. Narrative is very important to your work, and that your interest in psychology is serving you well. Do you feel that that's true?
Yes. I mean, I feel like psychology can apply in every sphere in our relationship in HR, as Dmitry said, in, marketing. So of course you have to educate yourself on different areas because psychology is a big sphere and how you can apply different aspects of psychology in business. But yes, psychology definitely helps, knowledge in psychology definitely helps to shift consumer patterns.
Dora, what have you and your partners faced as a big challenge?
There's obviously so many things, but I thought of like picking out one or two like really fun ones that we've overcome. I think one of them is we had this idea for a physical product, right? And anyone we talked to was just like, you're crazy. Like these two girls or three girls, like they're gonna manufacture a product, right? And like, we've never done that. We never built a product. So I think just like overcoming that and like now being at a place where like, wow, there's this physical something I can hold in my hand that people have at home and that has come out of a factory and we design it from, from the bottom up. I think that has been one of the most exciting challenges to overcome. And part of that was securing financing, selling a vision and selling the idea of a product. So we've gotten both investment and done a Kickstarter campaign, so crowdfunding. And then actually designing the product, finding a manufacturing partner, and figuring out all the details, all the engineering and the legal and administrative part of it along the way. And these have been really fun.
It's so wonderful how you described that, how you had to master all these disciplines or at least familiarize yourself and get the expertise that you needed that you never might have dreamt you needed. It sounds like an amazing journey. Mohammed, what have some of your biggest challenges been, and were you just as cheerful about them as Dora?
I wish I could have like the cheerfulness. Sometimes I felt like crying at home, and that happened more than once. But honestly, I think based on the field where I'm active, which is cybersecurity, we deal with a lot of sensitive stuff. Like we're talking about like the data of our customers, their most prized secrets. So when you're like a bunch of kids coming to the government of Dubai or like a public company and you're saying, hey guys, trust us, we're going to secure your networks or your products, it's really hard to get that sort of credibility and be taken seriously, especially when you're quite young and like have a new company. And I think that challenge we try to overcome over time through two things. First one was always to partner with people that have weight in each market. So for example, when we wanted to go into Saudi, we decided to partner with like a well-established businessman who was already a billionaire, like has a name for himself. So you can like leverage the name or the brand of other partners as opposed to relying on yourself. And I think that's equally important in the KSA or in the UAE. There is this term where, in this region, we say wasta or, like connections. And that's just as true as ever, especially when you launch your own business and you realize that you're not always going to get clients based on the merits of your product or service, but mostly because of who you know and who vouches for you. And I think that's very important to build that network of people who can enable you to get the sort of business and growth that you really want. And the second thing was obviously building, which is more progressive, is finding advocates. So I remember once our first major client was Kareem, which was bought by Uber. And the way we got Kareem was I went to a conference where one of the co-founders was speaking, Magnus, and I went to him and I said, listen, Magnus, I don't ask you to trust us on the merits of whatever we're going to offer. Give us a challenge. If we manage to hack the Kareem app, then give us a business. So we did the work for free. We spent like a month trying to do an amazing job, and the results spoke for themselves. And he loved our works, and he became our biggest advocates with other companies. So it's really important to find those people who are going to speak highly of you, because word of mouth is really important in this market. And I think that helped us come a long way, I'd say.
That's a great example and a story. Of course, networks and WASTA are important for opening doors, but in the end, the work has to be there, the product has to be there. As Dora was also speaking to, you have to deliver. Networks alone don't get you there. And yet they're so important to opening the doors. It's very interesting how you've said that. I think that many people shy away from starting up companies because they are a little nervous about the financing, the money. Often, especially if you're starting out, a salaried job can offer a lot more security, especially if you come from backgrounds where that hasn't been the case so much, maybe. Dora already mentioned how she got her financing going. If others of you want to speak to this a little bit, I think it would be interesting. Both how you do it, how you go about it, pitch an idea. If anyone wants to speak to this, I think it would be, that might be very helpful. Yeah, Mohammed, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll just give the example of how we got our first finance in my last year of university. So what we did is, before even creating a company or anything, we just had a team, and we said, we're going to get a contract. We're going to get a contract before even incorporating. So what we did is we hacked into Souq.com. We spoke to their executives. They said, you guys did an amazing job. We want to hire you to do the work for us, to secure our database and our app. And when they sent us the contract, we had no company or legal entity to put in the contract itself, right? So I took that letter of intent or that interest from the clients. I went to an investor who is the father friend of mine, and I told him, listen, we already have a contract before we start. So if you put your money, you're not throwing it into a risky investment. This is something that's already proven. So I think it's really important to bring that credibility to the table, especially when you're dealing with investors who are not as keen on taking risk as in other markets, say in the US or in China or Russia maybe. Here you really want to show them the value first, and I think that's very important. I think Dora did an amazing job with I believe the pre-orders and creating that list of interest from customers before even launching the products or building the product, because then you're creating or you're showing that you already have a stream of income that will justify whatever investment that investor puts in. This is not something that would go bankrupt. This is something that's already on its leg before it's even launched.
Very good example of one way to go about it. And I can't believe you did this while you were at Abu Dhabi, but it's amazing. Olya, I think you wanted to come in on this.
Yes, because I feel like my story is a little bit different. I am a totally self-funded company, so I was preparing for it in advance. I was freelancing, I was working for a corporate job, but I think, as Mohammed said later on, it's important to kind of create the interest or test your product in advance before putting all this effort and money. So yeah, I mean, it depends on what you listeners want to do, but self-funding is also an option, but it won't give you all the benefits of having huge investors, huge investment sum to spend on marketing and on your team. So a lot of, I won't say it's easy, a lot of steps you would have to figure out yourself first before you could hire a team if you're self-funded, but it is also a way to grow with company growth. So.
Yeah, if you want to grow and have 20 employees like Dimitri, you'll need a little bit more. Dimitri, did you want to speak to this at all?
Yes, I have something to mention. My company is also self-funded, just like Ola's, but before founding my company, I worked at investment banking and private equity. So I basically was on the other side of investments, because I worked for a family office, which was searching for companies to fund at different series, from seed investment to Series C. And what you're looking for at my investment banking company is basically what Mohammed has said, is a company with what's called MVP, a minimum viable product, which is basically an opportunity to test the hypothesis that this company has a good market fit, and that this company is going to have contracts, and that the unit economics is right, and that there is a letter of intent from a potential customer which is willing to purchase goods or services from your company. So basically, I think when you're searching for funding, what you basically need is an MVP of your company to be able to show to investors that this company is going to be profitable once you invest your money in it.
Yeah, you need to develop that confidence. I think that Dora and Mohammed, you worked with Start AD. That was available to you, that opportunity, I think. Dora, how did Start AD help you?
I think it was at the very beginning of like Start AD's time when we were seniors, and at the very beginning of me even thinking about something technical or entrepreneurial. And interesting, I think Mohammed mentioned the hackathon. I think hackathons were really impactful for me, and there was a Start AD hackathon, which was my first exposure to sort of like using tech really quickly to solve a problem that exists and help people. And I think this like idea and sort of this like whole lean concept was like planted in my head through Start AD. And so for me, that was really exciting. And so I wish it had been around longer when I was a student, but already just like seeding this thought was a really big, I guess like a really impactful thought on me for the long run.
Mohammed, did you have a chance to do a little bit of work with them?
Yes, I believe like even before Start AD launched, I remember like the entrepreneurial push from Ramesh and the team was what exposed me in the first place to entrepreneurial world. From the Holt Prize to the various competitions, they were always, like helping us get into and helping us pretty much like build these early interests in entrepreneurship and startup in general before like that solidified into Start AD as an entity. And I think without that, I wouldn't have built the network necessary, and I wouldn't have come across the opportunities that made me or made me able to start Volnine in my last year of university. I apologize for that sound. That's actually my pet fox in the background. So that's what a fox sounds like. And after that, I was privileged enough to work with Start AD in a couple of initiatives afterwards, helping. We just had last month or 2 months ago the UTech, then we're having Manassa next month. And just being able to interact with students at that stage where they're exploring what sorts of startups they want to go into, what sort of products they want to launch is very important, because generally how we're exposed to startups and entrepreneurial success stories is through the likes of Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos and so on. But when you see someone who was at that university, who just launched his startup at the last year of uni and somewhat made out of it a success, it becomes more reachable and you're able to I'd say relate to it a little better. And that's, I think, is motivating for students to pursue their entrepreneurial careers.
Yes, I think seeing success at various scales and not seeing it so out of reach seems very important. And each of you have in different ways spoken to that. Dimitri, you started with a friend at NYUAD. How did you come together to think now you knew each other, learning here in that very early days of NYUAD? What made you come together to start a company?
So I started my company with my classmate who also graduated from NYU with a degree in economics in 2014. His name is Besso. And well, actually, once I was resigning from my investment banking job and I was handing my boss a letter of resignation, and he asked me, what are you going to do? And I said, well, my friend and I are going to start business together. And he responded with a phrase which basically translates as, if you are to start a business with a friend, you're going to have a failed business and a failed friendship. And I thought about it and I thought, why is this really a phrase in Russian? I don't know if this is a similar phrase in other languages, but it's a very popular phrase in Russian. And I didn't know what to say to him. But now when I look back at it 3 years later, I realized that friendships really are a great base for funding your company, because who else are you going to start a company with other than your friend? Someone who you can really trust, someone who you know very well, and whose skills you're confident in. And so far, it's been great. My partner Besso, he has good experience in all the creative side of my business, which is basically branding, PR, and digital. And I have experience in business analytics, in financial modeling, and in this organization stuff that is needed to grow and scale business. So this has really become a good mixture of different competences, which were blended in together and had a foundation of trust to begin with.
That's an extraordinary account. And I'm sure it's not true for everyone. I see Dora nodding. I know that your friendships, maybe you say one more thing about that how important that was. I can totally see where the Russian proverb comes from, because I have seen examples of this not going so well. But the two things that you just said, Dimitri, trust and knowing each other's complementary skill sets, very important. Dora, how do you react to that Russian proverb?
Yes, I mean, I think this is a concern that comes up a lot, but I think just to sort of tie back into what we talked about earlier, if you really believe that a company will require you to fail a lot, then you need to have an environment in which you are okay failing. And I think that's where this trust actually and the past experiences becomes really an important sort of like glue and provides you with the opportunity to really be failing. Because I think if I had started a company with a new person that I don't know well, we haven't had this years of experience living together, playing soccer together, starting wisdom together, then it would be much harder to sort of like grant and receive that type of trust that allows you to just explore and try new things.
Mm-hmm. You are so great to talk to. I really like to keep going forever, but we do need to let you go on to dinner or other parts of your day. Let me just ask you one final question, each of you. It's our 10th anniversary, and we do a good deal of reflecting, of course. We're already a little bit past the 10th anniversary. If you could give one piece of advice of any kind to a student currently at NYU Abu Dhabi, and it's not easy right now, but we still have our beautiful community. I want you to know that. But if there's one piece of advice that you could give, what would it be? Let me start with Olya.
I would say believe in yourself, because when all these failures come, you would start doubting your abilities, your ability to move forward and solve the problems. So believe in yourself and don't confine yourself to only one specific notion. You can be a doctor, but also can be a dancer and kite surfer, an educator, and so many other things. So just explore life, keep exploring after NYUAD, because that's what we all did during our 4 years, and keep that notion with you throughout the life.
Beautiful. Mohammed?
I think it will all work out fine ultimately, regardless of the worries, regardless of the uncertainty about like what you're going to be working at or what kind of major you're going to be taking. A few years down the line, you look back and you just say that like it all made sense, and whatever happened all contributed to making you who you are today. I believe like I had so many, doubts about, like I started as an engineer, then I switched to finance. I wasn't so sure about like going into entrepreneurship instead of taking a job. But like sitting here and looking back at myself, back in university, I'm glad I made those decisions, regardless of how, dangerous they seemed. But it all works out.
Very encouraging to hear. Dora?
Yes, I think my advice goes along similar lines. It's really about just giving yourself the opportunity to explore and find that match that you will want to commit to. And really at that point already, when you're a student, you've gotten so many talents and skills, and your time is an amazing resource that you can dedicate to an important cause, to creating impact or making the change that you want. So it's really just up to you to like kind of find what is it that you want to dedicate that time and talent that you've got to.
Time is a great resource to share. Dimitri?
Well, I think many of our listeners are belonging to NYU Abu Dhabi community, and I think everyone who chose NYU Abu Dhabi as alma mater is very entrepreneurial to begin with. I think it's very entrepreneurial to go to New York University Abu Dhabi, take the risks and search for a value in a place where people haven't searched for it before. And I think my piece of advice is to all our community and other listeners is to try to leverage from everything that you do, whether it's a failure or a success. And That goes for being entrepreneurial in business or in academia or in other sorts of life. I think that's just very important to be able to learn, grow, and leverage from everything that you do, regardless whether it's a failure or a success.
Thank you, Dimitri. Thanks to all our panelists for your wisdom, really, and your insights, and for sharing your experiences in this very frank way. I think you are all value creators in the language, but I think what you've given us are values propositions, staying grounded in certain values that you developed, discovered, and honed while you were with us, and clearly have continued to do so. So it's very inspiring to hear all of you. We hope to see many of our listeners back and viewers back again on March 31st, when I'll have a conversation much like this with, I think Oya will be very pleased to hear this, with people who are making their way also in the arts, as curators, as artists, as producers, and so forth. And we'll just keep these conversations going as much as we can. I've really enjoyed spending the time with all of you, and I hope to see you back on our campus before too very long. Thank you very much, and have a great evening. Bye, everybody.